What's up, guys? Theo here, and welcome back to the It Factor MMA. So I'm going to be doing the first episode of a series that I'm going to be calling UFC Fallout, which is where I'm going to go over my results in the card and kind of talk about my thoughts about each fight, my reactions to what happened in each of those fights, if I won on them, if I lost on them, etc., etc. And if these videos get a lot of views, I might spend a little bit of time going into like what some of these fights mean for the sport, and what the repercussions of some of these fights are going to be for some of these fighters' careers. But for right now, the focus of the series is really going to be more on me reacting to the card fight by fight based on how my picks went with it. So we'll get right into it, guys. UFC Fallout 298, first fight, Andrea Lee versus Miranda Maverick. This was the first dog pick that I made for this card, and didn't go my way. Miranda Maverick ended up showing up and doing the opposite of what I thought would happen. She ended up outclassing Andrea Lee. Andrea Lee did have some good moments in the fight, particularly at the end. She had Miranda in a submission that was pretty tight. Miranda's corner was yelling at her not to tap. So, that wasn't a fun fight to watch because it was pretty obvious from past a certain point in the first round that Andrea probably was not going to get a victory here. She really wasn't putting together combinations in any kind of effective manner that would allow her to get past the power and the focus of Miranda Maverick. So Miranda looked great here. Kudos to her. She's one of those fighters I have a hard time betting on because I just don't have a great read on her. And if I'm right, I mean, if it wasn't some kind of troll or something, Miranda Maverick's daughter, I guess, commented on my original video saying, "I'm her daughter, you're wrong, she's gonna win in this spot." So unless that's a troll or she miscommunicated or whatever, thank you to Miranda Maverick's daughter for stopping by and commenting on the videos. Not the first time I've had a relative of a UFC fighter come out of the woodwork talking to me about predictions and whatnot. One time back before I was banned off of Reddit, I was on the MMA subreddit dropping pigs, and I remember when Matt Rivola fought Ottman Azaitar, I wrote a post about how I was picking Ottman Azaitar, and Matt Rivola's brother commented on it and was like, "I'm his brother, you're an idiot, you don't know what you're talking about." Hey man, respect. I'm all for people coming up and comment on my videos, whatever. If you're related to a UFC fighter or you are a UFC fighter, if you want to put me on blast, go right ahead, man. More engagement, more views for me. I won't take it personally. I don't care one bit. But yeah, thank you to Miranda Maverick's daughter for stopping by and saying something on my video. I appreciate that. And congratulations to Miranda Maverick for a good victory there. So next up, we got Danny Barlow and his fight against Josh Quinlan. My prediction on this one was right. Fortunately, all of the favorite predictions that I made for this card did hit. It was just that none of the underdogs that I had hit. And so this was the first pick that I had that hit. And Barlow looked good, guys. Honestly, when the fight was going on, I did make a couple live bets on Quinlan because I thought that he was taking over in some of the striking exchanges, and I did think for a minute there that he was not going to be able to, Barlow wasn't going to be able to knock him out. But Barlow ended up looking good the whole fight. Good striking, bit of a low guard for my take. But he looked good, man. He knocked his opponent out. He did what I thought he was going to do. Congrats to Danny Barlow. Not sure about how much I'm going to bet on him in the future because I feel like he's got some holes in his game that can be exploited by higher level fighters. Just fortunately not Josh Quinlan this time. So yeah. Next one up, we got Elliot versus Val Woodburn. Another one of the fights I predicted that went correctly. Unfortunately, Elliot was a giant favorite in this one, so there wasn't much money to be made. He did not look super good, and he did get rocked by Val Woodburn, but I think we really saw the difference in this fight between what a UFC level fighter is and what a non-UFC level fighter is in Val Woodburn. I don't think I've ever seen a fighter that gassed in the UFC before. The guy, his pop on his shots and his reflexes basically completely went out the window in the second round. So, yeah, a good win for Elliot. He's, honestly, I've kind of been vocal about the fact that I don't love him, but there is kind of something a bit cool about him. And honestly, what John Anik or Abisping said just like the last line as they were kind of fading out of that fight into the next one, Bisping did mention that this guy's father, who was supposedly like a really well-known fighter in the area, did kill himself. Did make me feel a little bit something for Oban Elliot there. You know, I kind of like the way he carries himself, taking that into account and whatnot, and the fact that he, you know, did show up, and I was correct about the fact that I did not think that this was the type of guy that was going to crumple when he encountered resistance. He did encounter resistance, and he did not crumble, so congrats to Oban Elliot for a great win there. He looked good. Hopefully he doesn't end up getting cooked later on in the UFC, though. Anyway, on to the next one. We had Brenson Ribiero and Zhang Mingyang. And yeah, this was another underdog pick that I put in there, and ended up blowing up in my face, man. Luckily, I did not have any bets on this fight. I had already lost 0.5 units on Andrea Lee first right off the bat, so I'm glad I didn't have anything bet on this. But yeah, everyone kind of saw what happened in that fight, guys. Brenson Ribiero managed to land a couple good shots early on, tagged him. I thought he was going to have success based on what I saw, but man, you just can't bet against fighters that have that block-shaped head, dude, because they can just take it and keep moving forward, and that's what Zhang Mingyang did. He moved forward, and he knocked Brenson Ribiero out. So, congratulations to him. I did personally think that, considering that Zhang had been knocked out many times before, and Ribiero was kind of either a knockout threat or a bad nail, I kind of did favor Brenson Ribiero's reach advantage and the slicker striking in this setting, but ultimately Zhang's durability ended up winning out, and yeah, unfortunately our second underdog pick did not go through. Like I said, good thing we didn't have anything bet on that, but segueing from that into the next fight, Rinya Nakamura took on Carlos Vera. And this was one that I was really sweating. I had 3 units on Rinya because I was thinking this was just a sure spot. And he did ultimately win, I guess what was a unanimous decision. But, you know, in that first round, I was pretty worried because he was not handling the jiu-jitsu game of Carlos Vera very well. And at the end of the first round, when they pulled them off, Carlos Vera gets up and has all the energy in the world. And Rinya was, like, crumpling on his knees, like, exhausted. So that kind of scared me. I was surprised they didn't say anything about it at the broadcast. I didn't see anyone talking about it on Twitter, but he was absolutely exhausted after that first round. Luckily, he's got that wrestling cardio. He managed to find his second win and came through. Congratulations to Rinya for winning. He didn't look as dominant as I thought he would, though, and I was sweating that bet. I thought there was a chance Vera was going to get him there at one point, but luckily it was a bad stylistic matchup for Vera, and our read came through on that other favorite. Next up is Marcos Rogerio de Lima and his fight against, I guess, Junior Tafa, was it? One of the Tafa brothers. Yeah, not much to say about this fight. The guy that didn't train and wasn't expecting to fight showed up and got destroyed by a better martial artist. That's all there really is to it. Like I said, I'm not high on the Tafa brothers. A lot of people were picking the Tafa this weekend when it was his brother. But what can you say, man? Just, they're pretty low-level heavyweights. Not super excited to see them in the future. Anyway, on to the next fight. So next we had Amanda Lemos versus Mackenzie Dern. This one really, really hurt, guys, because I did think Mackenzie Dern had a really good shot of winning this. And at the end, based on the last round, I actually figured they were going to give her the decision and rob Amanda Lemos, but they did not. Amanda Lemos won this fight fair and square, guys, even though I did think that Mackenzie Dern was going to win. This was a third underdog pick, and I had bets on this one. This one did not go through. Unfortunately, Lemos just did too much damage and was too live in the beginning rounds, second round particularly. She dropped Mackenzie Dern, and Mackenzie Dern just looked like she was in pain, kicking her legs, trying to escape, do whatever she could. So she managed to have some kind of like second wind again and come back with cardio later. But man, I kind of feel like Mackenzie Dern should retire. I don't really think she's cut out for this. She's been given chance after chance after chance. The UFC wants her to be a thing so badly, and she just can't seem to put it together in the octagon. She looked like she did not train for this fight at all. So, I mean, if she can't beat a woman who is never probably going to even, you know what I'm saying? Like, Lemos is probably never going to be champ at this point. If she can't beat Lemos, what path does she have to this championship? So, yeah, that one hurt. Anyway, on next to another favorite pick that came through correctly, Anthony Hernandez versus Roman Kopylov. Man, what can you say? Anthony Hernandez, guy's such a dog. This was an awesome fight. He ended up coming through, and I predicted that he would get a sub in round 2 or 3, and I believe he got a round 2 sub, something like that. So yeah, that was a read that came through for us. Congratulations to Anthony Hernandez. Roman Kopylov looked like crap in that fight, man. He really just, well, I don't know. Did he look like crap, or is Anthony Hernandez just that good? Does he have that crazy of a squeeze? I think that could be it. Hernandez is just so, man, he's just willing to bring the pain to guys, and he's just got that great MMA wrestling. So that was a great fight. Man, I have a feeling a lot of people had money on Kopylov, because I was telling people in chats and stuff, I was like, guys, if Kopylov wins this, people are going to be coming out of the woodwork talking about how could he have been a underdog here, blah, 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 whatever. So yeah, I'm glad Hernandez won that fight. That was at least one of the validating experiences we had on this card, to compensate for several underdog picks we made that lost. And speaking of, coming up to our next fight, this was my third underdog pick that ended up not coming through. I picked Henry Cejudo to beat Merab here. I thought he was going to be able to TKO Merab, but goddamn was I wrong. Merab looked absolutely amazing, really lived up to his nickname, The Machine. He just completely overpowered Cejudo, was able to contend with him with the wrestling, and just looked like he had more power. Picked Cejudo up, carried him across the octagon. So yeah, incredibly impressive performance from Merab. I think a lot of people are going to be very, very high on him after what he did tonight. All I can say about this guy is get me whatever he's taken, because he's, whoever's doing his supplement program, they gotta have the fucking best guys on earth doing this shit, because that dude seems like he has just limitless cardio and limitless power and strength, and he's like picking up an Olympic gold wrestling champion and throwing him on the other side of the octagon like he's Hamzat or something. This guy is 135 pounds doing this. My God. During the broadcast, Michael Bisping did take the piss out of him, and Joe Rogan was kind of asking, man, I wonder how he does it. How does he do that cardio? Obviously, they're not going to say anything about steroids on the air, but they had a pretty blatant, if you read between the lines, conversation there with Joe Rogan, basically asking, like, how the hell is what he's doing physically possible? And Michael Bisping very cheekily, with some good old-fashioned British sarcasm, answered him and said, I've talked to people in his training camp, and they say it's just hard work. And then they went silent for about 5 seconds. So I have a feeling they all know Merab is a complete juice head, and he acts like it, man, screaming in there in the octagon while he's like picking up Henry Cejudo. Got Henry Cejudo in a guillotine. Yeah, the dude is roided out of his mind. I don't know what they got these guys on, but ever since they have started doing their own steroid program, things have looked very different. We've been seeing some freakish cardio performances. We've been seeing some dramatic physique changes. I kind of knew something like this was going to happen when this drug program came out, because they released their code of conduct, and it was just very open-ended language. I'm not a lawyer or anything, but I know how to look at something and tell where a lawyer can argue against it. And I feel like it was a intentionally vague, basically, program they have set out in order to help UFC fighters supplement themselves properly. I'm sure they're using peptides and all kinds of steroids now, so nothing against anyone that decides that they want to do that in the UFC. I personally don't have much of an opinion one way or the other about it. I think it should be regulated, but if you can get around it, hey, whatever. But don't think that Merab is just like some incredibly hard, crazy worker, guys. It's not just coming out of nowhere. The guy is juiced to the gills, and it's showing in his cardio and his performances. He's just not ever slowing down. It's not natural. It's not just hard work. There's a lot of people that work hard in the UFC. Henry Cejudo is an incredibly hard worker. If it was just hard work, every single person would be going 3 rounds, insane output, and he went 5 rounds last time, insane output, and just not slowing down and having insane strength, picking people up in the second and third round after they've already spent a round running around. I mean, read between the lines here, guys. If it walks like a duck and talks like a duck, I mean, anyway, on to the next fight. Garry here. ended up winning against Jeff Neal. Jeff Neal was an underdog pick that I put in, fourth underdog pick of the night. He did not hit. I did not have any bets on this. And Garry ended up looking pretty good in this fight, man. Jeff Neal kind of did the Jeff Neal things that he does. Kind of good boxing, good bouncing in and out. But ultimately, he just wasn't able to put anything together. Garry was a little bit too fast, a little bit too clinical, and ended up defeating him by decision. I don't have much else to say about that, guys. Yeah, I knew there was a pretty good chance that Garry was going to win this. It was a bad stylistic matchup for Jeff Neal, but I did still think that Jeff Neal was going to be able to get more damage on Garry. And when he did land, it did look like it was hurting Garry, but he just wasn't landing enough. Garry's reflexes are too good for that, so congratulations to Garry for a great performance. Excited to see what happens with him in the future, but probably will still be betting against him in the future. Co-main event, guys, Whittaker versus Costa. This ended up being one of the better fights of the night, and I didn't really think it was going to be. Costa looked good. Whittaker looked good. I was kind of thinking that Whittaker was going to get knocked out there when Paulo Costa landed that spinning wheel kick. That was actually one of the better performances we've seen from Costa in a while. He looked good, he looked game, he looked dangerous, but ultimately Whittaker is just a slightly better martial artist, and I'm glad that the judges did not rob him here. I think a lot of people were thinking that Costa won that fight, although I did not think that. I could see a lot of people making that argument, so like I said, just happy to see the judges got this one right and gave it to the right man. Great performance by both guys, though. Excited to see what happens with Costa and Whittaker in the future. And then, guys, on to the main event. Oh, man, obviously the most dramatic one of the night. Elliot Topuria ended up knocking out Alexander Volkanovski in the second round. Hated to see it, man. I hate to see Volkanovski get knocked out. And, like I said, I know people are going to write him off after this. But I still think he's an incredible fighter and one of the best flyweights ever. It just seemed like Topuria just could not be stopped in there. And, I talked a lot in my pick video about Lucrative MMA and his read on this, how he picked Topuria round 2 KO. Extremely impressive pick. And that's exactly what ended up happening, man. Volk just kind of kept his hands a bit too low and circled a little bit too predictably. And eventually Topuria just managed to find him, get him against the cage, and knock him out. Like I said, it hurt to kind of see from the perspective of a Volkanovski fan, but guys, I've been a big fan of Elliot Topuria too. I've watched all of his fights, and I've been very vocal about the fact that I loved him. So, sad for Volkanovski, happy for Elliot Topuria. Really excited to see what happens with Elliot Topuria in the future. I'd love to see him run it with just about anyone in 45. There's a lot of talk about him fighting Sean O'Malley. That would be pretty cool, but I don't know if I see that happening anytime soon. I thought that Volkanovski was going to win this, but I did think that Topuria had the best chance of taking it from him. And Volkanovski did look good in the first round, but ultimately, man, I guess Volk just has lost a bit of his edge. He doesn't seem quite as dangerous in there the last fight that he did when he was fighting guys like Max and Korean Zombie. So maybe age is just catching up to him at this point. I mean, he is in a pretty low weight class. Maybe his future is at 155. It would be kind of cool to see him run it with, like, some of the guys in that division, some of the top 10 in that division. I don't know how far up he could end up fighting. I don't know if he could fight like a Michael Chandler or a Gaethje or anything like that. Don't know if I really want to see that, to be honest. But yeah, sucks to see Volk go out like that. Ultimately, I was wrong about this one. I said that I didn't think we were going to see a generational change like this. But it looks like Ilya just could not be denied. Congratulations to him. Bit of McGregor vibes coming from him now. I kind of was talking shit about people saying that earlier in the week, but I mean, what can you say? The guy's just got that it factor, guys, and that's exactly what I named my channel after, because sometimes you see it and you just can't quite put it all together with numbers or anything. It just seems like some people have that thing about them that allows them to kind of bend the world to their will, and Topuria showed a little bit of that last night. So congratulations to him. Very cool to see a new featherweight champion. And yeah, guys, that's going to do it. Stay tuned in this week for picks coming for the UFC Mexico card.